Okay, let's see. Got my suitcase, got my neck pillow, got my snacks. Do I need anything else? Oh, hey friends, how's it going? I hope you got your bags packed because we're traveling again today for our international tour of theater history. Woo! In our previous lesson, we were based in Europe with ancient Roman theater through the Middle Ages. Today, we'll stay in the same time period, but we're heading all the way across the world to East Asia. Get ready to hop into our ox cart because we'll be looking at 3 different forms of East Asian theater, including nanxi in China, No in Japan, and talchum in Korea. By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to define, describe the background, and list the elements of these 3 different artistic forms. So, let's get into our ox cart because it's time to start our journey. Welcome to ancient China. We are in the birthplace of the compass and paper making. Theater here dates back as far as the Shang Dynasty in the 16th century BCE. But today, we're going to focus on nanxi in China, starting with a quick definition, then moving on to a brief background, and finally, listing the elements of the form. Nanxi means southern drama and was an early form of Chinese opera. Nanxi was developed from the ancient Chinese traditions of mime, dance, and music. During the beginning of the Middle Ages, theater was shut down in Europe. However, in China, theater was thriving. During the 6th Dynasty's period, the early 3rd century to the late 6th century, several song and dance dramas developed. These simple pieces are considered to be the earliest musical theater pieces in China. Moving on to the Song Dynasty, in 960 to 1279, popular plays emerged with drama and song. In the city of Wenzhou, a new form of theater called nanxi developed and spread widely in southern China. Nanxi used mainly southern language, so any of the fancy-smancy people of the day considered nanxi to be unsophisticated. Even though it might have been on a higher poetic level with more verse in the spoken parts, the romantic love stories were considered too vulgar and outspoken for the rigid Confucian scholars of the day. Because it was considered a low art form, nanxi was largely ignored by many historians for years. Large amounts of nanxi were written, but relatively few full works still exist to this day. The elements of nanxi include music, storylines, and role types. Nanxi's music was incredibly innovative at the time because it combined the refined Chinese music of the Song Dynasty with traditional and local folk tunes. Solos, duets, and choruses were all included in the plays. The emphasis on nanxi was on the music rather than the acrobatics and the acting. I better warm up my singing voice then. La 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 la. Nailed it. Nanxi's storylines were also innovative. Up to this point, no other dramatic form in China had such elaborate scripts or complex stories. However, it was originally rather limited in topics, with a focus on love stories. In the 14th century, there was a resurgence in nanxi when Gao Ming, a reputed poet and playwright, adapted one of the earliest nanxi dramas into a new play, The Story of the Lute. Gao Ming's play elevated the popular rustic form to a high literary standard. The Chinese emperor loved it so much that he ordered it performed every day at court. Can you imagine watching the same play every single day? Whew! Now, if you looked at the PDF for our last lesson, Roman Theater through the Middle Ages, you might remember that there were specific character types within medieval plays. Similarly, nanxi included specific role types. Originally, there were 5 character types that later expanded to 7. The most defined types were Shun, the male hero, and Dun, the female heroine. Usually, 2 slapstick clowns would also be included as well. So, watch out for that banana peel, right? Hua! And with that, we better slip to our next destination, Japan. Here we will watch no theater, so we can define, describe a brief background, and list the elements of the form. Oh, wait, I didn't mean that we won't be watching any theater. I meant we'll look at no theater. No, not no like no, but no like no. Oh, goodness. This is going to get complicated, isn't it? No is spelled N-O-H, and it's a form of Japanese dance drama. It's been performed since the 14th century, and it's based on traditional literature tales. No theater emphasizes tradition over innovation, so let's take a look at how those traditions started. During the Muromachi period in the 14th century, Kanami Kiyotsugu and his son, Seami Motokiyo, reinterpreted several traditional performing arts to complete the theater form No. Kanami led a theater troupe that became popular in the late 1360s to early 1370s. An advisor to the shogun, a military ruler in Japan, invited the troupe to perform at court. The shogun was so impressed that he became Seami's sponsor in 1374. Look at all that money, honey! Woo! 4 schools for No were opened in this era. You can see their names right here. When Kanami died in 1385, Seami took over his father's troupe. As time passed, No continued to grow, and a 5th and final school opened. Currently, No is the oldest form of theater art that is still regularly performed in Japan. The elements of No include training, costumes and props, chants and music, and masks. Training as a No actor is very intense. Most begin studying at 3 years old. There are 9 levels or types of No acting and 4 major categories of No performers. No costumes are silk robes called shosoku, with bold colors, intricate texture, and elaborate embroidery. Costumes can also include wigs, hats, and props. The most common prop is a fan, which is carried by all performers. Fans can be used to symbolize other items such as swords, writing brushes, wine jugs, and flutes. Chants and music are essential in No theater. No has text that is sung and text that is chanted by a chorus. Additionally, there is a Hayashi ensemble, a group of 4 musicians which includes 3 drummers and a flutist. Beautiful! Another super important element in No is the masks. No masks are carved Japanese cypress that are painted with natural pigment over a neutral base of glue and crunched seashell. No masks represent a character's social ranking, gender, and age. Usually, only the main actor wears a mask. There are about 450 different masks, and each one has a different name. And while we're on the subject of masks, let's continue our East Asian tour and head to Korea, where we're going to look at another form of masked drama, talchum. We'll define the form, describe a quick historical background, and list the important elements. Talchum is a Korean mask dance accompanied by songs and dramas. There are about 12 to 13 different styles of talchum, unique to each region of Korea. Talchum can include miming, speaking, and sometimes singing. Boom! Talchum most likely began in the Three Kingdoms period in Korea, around 18 BCE to 935 CE. Originally, the mask dance was a ritual to communicate with the gods. However, it was popularized among the village people in the Joseon era, starting in 1392. The masks offered commoners a way to release their frustration against those in power while still remaining anonymous. These folk dramas allowed the lower class to express their anger over how the Yangban, the Korean rulers of the Joseon period, treated them. Talchum performances criticized members of the aristocracy and Buddhist hierarchy while also poking fun at lower class stereotypes. Traditionally, talchum was performed on special days such as the first full moon, Buddha's birthday, the Dano festival, and a mid-autumn harvest festival called Chuseok. Talchum is still performed to this day. One of the most remarkable features about talchum is the enthusiastic audience participation. At the end of the performance, everyone participates. The audience joins the actors in a robust dance for the grand finale. So, if you go to a talchum performance while we're here in South Korea, make sure to bring your dancing shoes. And while we're talking about dancing shoes, let's look at some more clothing, along with other elements of talchum, such as masks, music, and plots. Clothes are an essential part of talchum. Typically, a dancer wears a silk hanbok, a traditional Korean clothing with long flowing white sleeves to add to the impressive drama of the dance. especially when in contrast to the fixed masks. Talchum masks are usually made of wood, bamboo, or paper gourd. The faces are usually distorted or comical with exaggerated facial features. The mask's disproportional features symbolize the social status of the character. For instance, the servant will have larger eyes, ears, and nose to represent how they must watch and listen closely to the nobleman to catch their corruption. Talchum music can have many different types of musical instruments, but there are several that are commonly used. Rhythmic patterns are usually made with percussion instruments, like drums, and melodies are played with two-string fiddles and bamboo flutes and oboes. Talchum plots usually revolve around four themes. The first is a mocking of the aristocracy. Nya, 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 nya. The second is a love triangle storyline. The third is a corrupt, depraved monk. And the fourth is a good versus evil story with good winning at the end. Yay! Woo! And speaking of winning, you've been winning today as we toured across 3 different forms of East Asian theater, including nanxi in China, No in Japan, and talchum in Korea, learning how to define, describe the background, and list the elements of these 3 different artistic forms. Before we get back into our Oxen card, make sure to check out the practice questions and PDF for this lesson to prepare for the rest of our tour in the next lesson. Theater around the world. Until then, remember, in theater, like in life, the limit is your imagination. Hey!